We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
As the world watches the Ukraine-Russia situation, many people are beginning to ask, what were the root causes? Now, obviously, there was Putin's aggression, there was his ideals for expansionism, but did globalist international organizations play a role as well? To help us answer these questions, we're joined by former Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Controller, Dave Patterson. Thanks for being here, Dave.
Thank you, Mark. Always happy to be with you.
So what I want to ask, Dave, is NATO, here's the big question. Has it helped or hindered the situation?
Well, I think that NATO has definitely helped the situation. And if President Putin has done one thing, he has brought the NATO countries together in common cause. I don't think that's what he had in mind, but that's certainly what's happened.
Yeah, it seems like it's a side effect that he wasn't expecting, because we have seen in the recent past that NATO was a very much fractured organization. Now, I know a lot of people would like to put the blame of that on former President Donald Trump, because he was demanding that they pay their full fee share. But I believe that in hindsight, perhaps that was a wise thing to do, especially considering the recent events in Ukraine.
Well, I think it was. And let's not forget that probably President Biden did a lot to do that as well, because in a perverse way, he has brought the nations together. And because of the bumbling and fumbling that took place for a year, that actually laid the groundwork for President Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. You know, we've been talking about this for about a year. The first plea went out from President Zelensky, president of Ukraine, a year ago in April. And people have been fooling around, doing virtually nothing until the ultimate disaster took place. And so the one thing that we can say is that Putin's invasion of Ukraine brought NATO together in common cause. And not only that, but countries you would not have anticipated. Finland, Sweden have also given arms to Ukraine fighters. And this is a good thing for Europe.
What appears to be happening is that they're coalescing around a single united response, which seems to be good in this instance. But are there issues with that further down the line?
Well, I think that we have to look at this through, unfortunately, through Putin's lens. And that is, his focus is on NATO, but he really doesn't want Ukraine to be that close to the European Union either. So I think a negotiating position might be, okay, we guarantee Ukraine will not be part of NATO, but they will be part of the European Union. And so what you've done is you've given the choice to Putin without any other alternatives. And I think that's a good negotiating position.
Yeah, it's the Hobson's choice, isn't it? You can take anyone as long as it's the one closest to the door.
That's right. But that's what the Russians do to you. And so turnabout's fair play, certainly in a negotiating forum. And hopefully we see some progress on the Belarus border between Ukraine and Russia in their negotiations.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Russian allies in this, or at least those who have not joined with the NATO side, as it were. You've got countries like India who have refused to outright condemn, and China and United Arab Emirates also abstained from voting with the UN. So what's their position? This clearly doesn't mean that they back the actions in Ukraine, but what does it mean?
No, I think they're taking cover under the abstention. It's not that they openly approve of what Russia has done in Ukraine, but at the same time, they're not backing the West in its objection and outright despising of this thing that's going on. This is not unusual for India that prefers to be in the grandstands watching what goes on, but at the same time they have their own problem with China on their border. So there's as one movie title said, it's complicated.
Mm. And of course, that does bring us nicely round to China. Now, China has tried to play the middle road on this, which is unsurprising for a country called the Middle Kingdom. But will they be able to keep operating globally while the sanctions remain in place? Or will they have to change tack, as it were, to continue their growth?
Well, I think that China is in a very difficult position, regardless of what they may say publicly. They do a lot of trade, particularly with Ukraine. And obviously with Russia, their imports of oil amount to about 15%. And this puts them in a very difficult position because they don't want to do anything that would stop this trade. And it's particularly important with Ukraine because Ukraine is an important element of their Belt and Road program. And so this is a delicate situation for China, as I said, despite what they might say publicly.
And do we think that the global reaction to Ukraine will be giving China pause for thought when it comes to the idea of taking Taiwan?
It might very well. You don't know what exactly goes on in their calculus. There are two potential ways that China might think about this. One is, while the rest of the world is focused on Ukraine, now is a good time for us to invade or cause Taiwan significant problems. But there's another aspect to this as well, and that is, as you point out, the world public opinion has turned very quickly against Russia, and China is well aware of that. And China really lives vicariously through what they believe are good relations with others. Now, that may or may not be true. And they also are very sensitive to what the rest of the world thinks about them. So you can see why they get upset when the United States goes on record to criticize their treatment of the Uyghurs and their dissidents. And they come out very strongly against that when the United States or anyone else does that, because they're so sensitive about saving face.
And final question for you, Dave. Has Mitt Romney been vindicated over his position on Russia?
I think he has. I mean, when President Obama dismissed him so easily about Cold War thinking, and we've moved on from there, it just shows how wrong the Obama administration was in their worldview. And of course, we know now that his vice president, now President Biden, is equally wrong in his worldview.
Dave Patterson, thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Mark.
You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard across the Radio America network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. Remember, you can tune in for Liberty Nation from 2 to 3 p.m. Sunday on KBKW 103.5 FM, 1450 AM, the talk of Grays Harbor. Coming up later, we examine the path to confirmation for Judge Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court in our special Talking Liberty segment. But up next, we ask just how bad will energy and gas prices get for the American people. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fight for freedom.
Maybe tracking polls sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.